Markos Moulitsas, founder of the Daily Kos website, explains the politics behind the Democrats' $3,600 child tax credit proposal. It's actually fascinating. Check it out. Leave your comments. Ding the bell. Markos Moulitsas, the founder of Daily Kos, co-founder of the polling firm Civiqs, Civiqs, co-host of The Brief, the Daily Kos political show. Daily Kos, DAILYKOS.com. If you are not familiar with it, it's one of the best sources of good progressive news and information out there, as well as working just in an extraordinary fashion, and I want to get into this with Markos, to elect good progressives all across the country. Markos' Twitter handle is @Markos, M-A-R-K-O-S, or @DailyKos. Markos, welcome back to the program. It's been a while since we've talked, and I'm so glad you could drop by. First of all, what we originally booked you on was this $3,600 tax credit and an op-ed that you wrote over on your own website, dailykos.com, talking about how this was politically brilliant. You want to explain that?
Yeah, Tom, so thanks for having me on. It's great to talk to you again. It has been too long.
Thank you.
The $3,600, so the proposal is not there's the $1,400 sort of stimulus to everybody, that's part of the plan. But on top of that, there's also a proposal for a tax credit, child tax credit, that would go to families for each individual child. Any child under the age of 6, I believe, would be $3,600. Anybody over the age of 6 would be $3,000, and it would be paid monthly. It would actually be a check sent by the IRS to each family for every child, and it would be a monthly check. So the $3,600 check would be a $300 check a month. Now, the way the legislation is built, it expires in a year, but the intent is to have it be permanent, and with the majorities, I think they'll be able to manage that. And then what you have, in addition to being the best thing you can do to combat child poverty, and estimates say that it could pull at least almost half, if not half, of all children in poverty, could pull them out of poverty within a year. So this would be, just from a policy perspective, it's fantastic. It's literally the best thing you can do. But on top of that is that political angle is we're going to have a tough 2022. We have a narrow majority in the House. We have the narrowest majority in the Senate, and all the battleground Senate states are literally the 2020 battlegrounds. It's Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. I think I said it already. So it's the exact same map in 2020, and as we saw, all of those states were razor tight. So if we can, and there's the problem with the history that says that basically any president's first midterm election after being first elected, they lose seats. And the exception was George Bush after 9/11. But generally speaking, presidents lose seats their first midterm election. So how do we combat that? How do we avoid that fate? Is we got to keep people engaged, and we got to give people a reason to vote. And I can't think of a better reason for people to vote than if it becomes a debate between, do you keep getting a $300 check for your kid or not every single month? And we know where Republicans stand on that question. And so it would be a very clear sort of example of how Democrats can deliver for people in a way that Republicans refuse to.
So if we were to pass this, if the Democrats in the House and Senate and the President were to sign this in the near term now, and it lasts for a year, they would be coming up for renewal around the middle of the primary season, wouldn't it? And leading into the general election season for 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. This is why I think, just from a politics standpoint, if you really want to give people a reason to turn out and vote in a midterm election where base turnout is already low in general, if you want to give them a reason to turn out, then you got to get people benefits of turning out, right? And for families with kids, it would be checks. For students, for younger people, it would be loan forgiveness. I mean, you got to find ways to sort of deliver for the people that brought you. And I mean, Donald Trump did that in a crass way, right? I mean, he dumped billions of dollars into Iowa. And he did that stuff. But these are things that can be done that would be good policy and good politics, and it's a win-win. And what's great about this sort of modern Democratic Party, and Tom, you've been around you've been around longer than I have, I believe. We've seen where the party used to be, and the fact that this is not just being considered, but seems to be on the fast track for passage means that we have a much different Democratic Party today than we did, even 10 years ago.
Is this going to be built into the reconciliation appropriation?
Yeah, as far as that's the way it looks right now.
Which raises a second issue, and this is something that I've been worrying about out loud and writing about on my daily blog over on at medium.com, is this idea that the most poisonous toxin for a democracy is cynicism. And we're 40 years into this Reaganomics era now, and as Gillens and Page pointed out in 2014, we are 20 years now into an era that could be described as oligarchy, if you describe an oligarchy as when government ceases to function for the people and starts working exclusively for the oligarchs. I mean, it's been a long time, through the Clinton administration, through the Obama administration, it's been a long time since we've seen anything close to what we got out of the LBJ administration, for example, with Medicare and Medicaid and the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and food stamps and Section 9 housing and Pell Grants and on and on and on. I mean, lots and lots of stuff. We used to get stuff for people before Reaganism, and now not so much. And my concern is that if the filibuster is not blown up, and I understand now Dianne Feinstein has joined, if you could verify that for me, has joined Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema in saying, no, we like Republicans to be able to veto our legislation. If the filibuster is not blown up, then not much is going to happen, and if not much happens, then in 2024, get ready for President Tom Cotton or Rick Scott. What are your thoughts on that? We have a little less than 2 minutes till we hit a break, but we can continue the conversation after that.
Yeah, the filibuster obviously has to go. We at Daily Kos have been railing against the filibuster since the existence of Daily Kos, since 2002, even when it benefited Democrats. It's just an undemocratic procedure that has no basis in history or the Constitution. It just needs to go. The trick here is to, and Feinstein's awful, for sure. The trick here is to make it less a debate about just procedure and actually make it a debate about something tangible. So there is definitely a move amongst Democrats to put pressure on the filibuster when the time is right, when there's popular legislation on the table that won't pass because of the filibuster, and then the screws can be really tightened on Manchin. I think everybody else sort of falls in line. I think Manchin's the one who has been very, very adamant that he's not going to let it go. But you know what? You pass filibuster reform, Manchin becomes the most powerful man in the Senate, and I don't know. So if you maybe play to that ego,
I've been speculating that he's doing this because the coal industry in West Virginia very much likes the filibuster because it prevents anything that, any Green New Deal kind of legislation that might blow up the coal industry. What do you think?
I think it's a little deeper than that. The coal industry is dead at this point. I don't think anybody's really pretending otherwise. I think it really comes down to it plays to that sort of pretense of bipartisanship, and we can all find some middle ground, and this forces us to be more mindful. I think it plays to that. And but there's more to talk about filibuster if you want to after the break.
Sure, yeah, stick around. It's 15 minutes past the hour. We're talking to Markos Moulitsas, the founder of Daily Kos, co-founder of the polling firm Civiqs, Civiqs, and co-host of The Brief, a Daily Kos political show that you can check out over at dailykos.com.